welcome to the Dear Teenage Girl podcast. I'm your host, Amy. I'm here with another episode. If you're new here, welcome. I hope that you enjoy this episode and make sure you go back and listen to previous episodes, especially last week's, because last week and this week are kind of a two-part series. Last week I talked about first loves, and this week I'm talking about your first heartbreak. And I hope that maybe you can only relate to the first podcast episode, but most likely at some point in your life, you're gonna go through a breakup, and so that's why I'm going into it and talking about my breakup. Obviously, I'm not gonna go into detail about my breakup because that is personal, and I don't want to hurt the other person involved. Um, but I do think that it's something that should be talked about because when you're going through your first breakup, you're full of emotions and you don't really know what's going on. Or at least I didn't. Like, you see breakup on TV shows, but most of the time they end up back together, or most of the time the breakup on the TV show was because there was another person involved in the relationship, and so they just like jump ships and move to another person, and that's not how it is in real life. So I just wanted to be the support and let you know that you're not alone in your breakups, and that breakups are hard and breakups suck, but you will get through this. If I could get through it, you'll get through it. If I can do a podcast episode and not be bawling my eyes out, then you'll get through it. I promise you. But alright, so let's just talk a little bit about your first breakup. So when you first get broken up with or you first break up with someone, it's gonna be hard. Even if you're the person who's breaking up with the person, like, there's a reason why you're breaking up with that person, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't love them anymore. It just means that something's not working. And so, and still loving that person or still liking that person, you're almost grieving someone because there's someone that has been integrated into your life in such a big way that it's like they're the first thing that you think about when you wake up and the last thing you think about before you go to bed. And you wake up to that good morning text, or you wake up sending a good morning text, and you go to sleep sending a good night text, right? And that is, and they're on your mind every day. Like, they're the first person you go to with things. And I found that that was the hardest for me, was like something as silly as, like, who am I gonna send my random cow reels to, or random rat reels that I find on Instagram reels? Like, who am I gonna send those to? But like, send them to your best friend. Like, I'm sure your best friend's gonna understand that you're going through a breakup, and they'll be fine watching your cow reels or whatever reels you watch. You probably don't watch cow reels, but that's my guilty pleasure. Um, but let yourself be sad and let yourself mourn. And there is no designated time period for this. It's not like after a week, then you're not allowed to be sad anymore. I would say don't isolate yourself too much because you don't want to get into too much of a depressive state, but make sure that you are allowing yourself to be sad and you are letting yourself mourn, because in a way you are grieving and you are mourning the loss of this person, and that's completely normal and that's completely fine. Um, Let yourself indulge in chocolate and ice cream and don't feel guilty about it. Like, whatever you need, go for it and do it. And also make sure that you are surrounding yourself with people. It doesn't have to be all the time. Like, have those times alone. Have those times when you're just there in your thoughts and you're mourning and you're crying and you're wishing that that person was there. But also, have people to keep you accountable, that you are still taking care of yourself and you are still um, holding to responsibilities that you have, and that you're not texting them, because when you break up, you need space. Do not text them right away. I made this mistake, and it honestly, I don't regret it. I think it happened the way that it needed to happen, but for everyone, it's not going to happen the way that it needs to happen, or it's like there's not going to be a benefit out of texting them after you've broken up. So give it at least 2 weeks, complete no contact, because then you're not going to say things out of hurt and out of anger that you're going to regret later. And then also, it's like you're still built up on the emotions, like you still love that person, and so you're still going to want to be with that person. And then it's so easy to be like, okay, like I still love you, I want to be with you. So then you don't leave that person, or like you want to come back to that person right away, because all you feel is the emotions of like missing someone and grieving someone, and you're not really seeing the emotions of like oh, we broke up for a reason, which you will see later. I promise you, the rose colored glasses will come off eventually. And even though when you just break up you might be like, oh, like I still love him, like I want to get back together, like trust me, wait at least 2 weeks, or wait until you're done mourning, and wait until those rose colored glasses come off, and then you can decide if you still want to get back together. Like even if they're a good person, like you broke up for a reason, and so you need to take that into consideration and not just rush back into things because of your feelings, because your feelings are fleeting. And yeah, I know that I wanted to jump back into the relationship because I was scared of being alone. I was scared of no one loving me. I was scared of no one taking care of me. And I have learned that I was really, really, really dependent on the person I was in a relationship with. And that was not beneficial for me. And so when we broke up and I was just feeling these feelings of missing him, then it's like I wanted to get back into the relationship. I wanted things to go back to how they were when they were good. But they weren't good all the time. There were times when it wasn't good, and I'm not putting blame on the other person or myself. Like we both messed up, we both made mistakes. There were times when it wasn't good, and then it's like I needed to remember that, and I needed to remember, hey, we broke up for a reason. And then as the rose-colored glasses come off, then you see more reasons, and you're like, oh, like I shouldn't have been treated like that, or I shouldn't have been treating them like that. And you can just look into your relationship a little from a different lens and a different perspective and realize you made the right decision, or they made the right decision, or then get back together. Um, And yeah, just have those friends to keep you accountable. Have those friends that will just sit there and listen. Or if you need someone to make you laugh, that will make you laugh. Friends are super important, but another thing that's super important is to eat. I cannot stress this enough. I lost 15 pounds in 2 weeks from my breakup. You need to eat. It's gonna be hard. You're not gonna feel like you're gonna want to eat. You're gonna feel really nauseous, but you need to. I lived off of a protein drink a day for over 2 weeks, and it was really unhealthy, and I passed out a lot. And I could barely make it through class and make it through school, not because I was, well, yeah, because I was sad and mourning, but also because I had absolutely no energy for the day. So make sure that you are eating. Um, that's all I can say. I don't really have any like good tips for how to eat. Eat the things you love. Just make sure that you're putting nutrition in your body and you're taking care of your body. Another thing that I would say is forgive. Whether or not you feel like he's done something wrong, forgive him. Forgiving him doesn't mean you need to let him back in your life, and this may not happen right away. But forgiveness is so important, and God calls us to forgive, and God has forgiven us from all of our sins that we have done, and we have done 10,000 plots. Like, we've done so many sins that doesn't like compare to, anyway, we've sinned a lot, but God still forgives us. So in that, we're called to forgive others. So make sure that you forgive the person that you were in a relationship with, and don't grow bitter towards them. Like, there's gonna be a time after you've mourned and the rose-colored glasses come off when you're gonna be like, man, I'm not so glad how that ended, or I'm not so happy about how the relationship was actually. But remember that they were put in your life for a reason, and that God had them there for a reason, and that you weren't perfect in the relationship either, and you would want them to forgive you. So make sure that you're forgiving them and you're not growing bitter, because that's not beneficial for you. And then just really depend on God. One of the reasons why my relationship ended was because God wasn't the center in our relationship, and that's super important. And what I found is when I got out of the relationship, I started to depend on God more, and that has been so fulfilling, and it has satisfied me more than my relationship ever did. And I'm not talking bad about my relationship. I'm so happy for the relationship that I was in. I'm so happy for my ex, and I loved him a lot, and it was a good relationship. But what it was missing was, it was missing God. And the second that I realized that, and the second that I started really living for God, that's the second where your life has meaning again, and your life has purpose. Because I was so scared in breaking up with my boyfriend that no one was going to love me. And I came to this realization. This is going a little bit off topic. My friends from school will be laughing after I share this. I've come to the realization that one of my biggest fears ever since I got seizures was that no one was going to love me because of my seizures, and no one was going to be able to take care of me in the way that I needed to be taken care of, and that I was never going to find someone. And I'm not a high needs person. Like, I have seizures, but like I'm pretty good at like navigating them and like taking care of myself, and I'm not someone that like needs someone with me 24/7. I actually hate it when people are like overprotective, overbearing. Um but in that fear, I've realized that what I find most attractive in a guy is if they take care of me. And that is why I fell in love with my ex. I fell in love with him for other reasons, but I fell in love with my ex because he was good at taking care of me. And there have been other people in my life that have taken care of me, and then I'm like, oh, like I got feelings for them, and I haven't, but it was this fear, and then I'm seeing this fear being, it was something that I was so scared of. And then I'm seeing, oh, people actually do care about me. People actually will take care of me. People actually will love me. So I'll like cling to that, and I'll be like, to the point where whenever I am rushed, I'm not actually rushed to the hospital in an ambulance, but whenever I am in an ambulance, I will flirt so much with the ambulance driver. A, because I'm high out of my mind, not on like weed, like on actual like legal drugs that I have to take for my seizures, but also B, because they're taking such good care of me. And I find that attractive, and so then I go for the people in the ambulance, or I go for a random person that drives me home from the hospital. Um, and I'm really outing myself here right now. But what was I talking about? Oh, it's so easy for me to become dependent on other people because I have a need for other people sometimes. And it's like God takes care of my spiritual needs, but it's like sometimes you need a physical person there to take care of my physical needs. Like if I can't walk, I need someone to push my wheelchair or pick me pick me up and take me somewhere, Um, that I was becoming so dependent on other people, and someone actually was like, "Hey, Amy, do you think you're too dependent on your ex?" And and that kind of hit me. It's like I thought that I was like some like strong, independent woman, but I actually was so dependent on my ex that I wasn't becoming dependent on God, and that's who I needed to become dependent on. And even now, I have to catch myself because I'll become dependent on anyone that will take good care of me. And I need to be like, hold on, Amy, take a step back and make sure that you're not just becoming dependent on people, but you're also continuing to be dependent on God. And whatever season you're in your relationship with God, make sure that after the breakup and you have time, that you're really growing closer to God and you're clinging to God more than ever. Because if you can't cling to God when you're single, you're not going to be able to cling to Him in a relationship. So, this is your time to be like building yourself up to be the kind of person you would want to be with, because then you're going to attract that person. And it's not all about getting back into a new relationship, even though that would be nice and that's exciting, and then you'll have someone again. But it's about the relationship that we desire to have with the Lord, and there's no better opportunity than now to pursue that and to follow through with that. And maybe you're in a relationship right now and you can't relate because you're not going through a rough patch in your relationship and you're not going to break up. But what I would suggest is take a look at your relationship. Not to break up with the person. Breakups suck. I don't want anyone to break up with anyone. Unless you have to. But who are you dependent on? Are you dependent on the person or are you dependent on God? And how can you work on that? So that's kind of all I have to say today. I hope that it was a educational podcast. I hope that you learned something from it. And heartbreaks are going to take time. It's going to take time to heal, and it's like right now I feel like I'm doing fine and dandy, but I've been told that it will come back and hit me at some point. So don't get discouraged if it takes you longer to heal, but I just want to encourage you and let you know that it does get better, and you'll find someone so much better. So yeah, thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys next Wednesday.